ancient, mist-covered mountains of Citharon, where the air was thick with magic and the whispers of old gods, lived a mountain nymph named Echo. Among all the Oreads, she was unique not just for her radiant beauty, but for her voice. It was said that when Echo spoke, the birds would stop their singing to listen. She possessed a rare and dangerous gift, the art of storytelling. She could weave tales so intricate, so filled with humor and grace, that hours would pass like seconds for anyone caught in her spell. But Echo was not just a storyteller, she was a conspirator. Zeus, the king of the gods, was notorious for his wandering eye. He frequently descended from Olympus to these very woods to pursue affairs with the lovely nymphs who dwelled there. However, Hera, the queen of heaven, was fiercely jealous and ever vigilant. She would often storm down from the heavens, determined to catch her husband in the act. To protect himself and his lovers, Zeus enlisted Echo. It was a task she performed with dangerous skill. Whenever Hera arrived, eyes blazing with suspicion, Echo would intercept her. With a bright smile and a respectful bow, she would launch into a story, a long, winding, fascinating tale about a river spirit or a lost star. She would ask Hera for her divine opinion, compliment her beauty, and chatter endlessly. While the Queen of Gods was distracted by this golden wall of words, Zeus and the other nymphs would slip into the shadows, leaving no trace behind. The wrath of Hera. For a time, the ruse worked perfectly, but gods are not easily fooled forever, especially not the Queen of Heaven. One fateful afternoon, Hera descended with a speed that gave no warning. Echo rushed to meet her, launching into a story about a theft of nectar. But this time, Hera was not in the mood for tales. She looked past the babbling nymph and caught a glimpse of Zeus's white robe disappearing into the thicket. The realization struck Hera like a thunderbolt. She had been played. The charming nymph before her was not a devoted servant, but an accomplice to her husband's infidelity. Hera turned her gaze upon Echo, and the temperature in the glade dropped. Her eyes, usually bright with power, now were cold with a terrifying rage. "You dare," Hera whispered, her voice shaking the leaves from the trees. "You used your tongue to trick me? You used your voice to make a fool of the Queen of Olympus?" She pointed a finger at the trembling nymph. "Very well. Since you love to speak so much, I shall leave you your voice, but you shall never use it to deceive again. From this moment on, you will have no power to speak first. You will never begin a conversation. You will never tell another story. You will only be able to repeat the last words spoken to you. You are no longer a storyteller. You are merely an echo." Echo opened her mouth to beg for mercy, but no sound came out. She tried to scream, to cry, but silence choked her. Devastated, stripped of her identity and her greatest gift, she fled into the deepest parts of the woods, hiding her shame in the shadows, waiting for a voice she could borrow. The boy who would not know himself. While Echo suffered in silence, in the nearby region of Thespiae, a child was born who would become the instrument of her final tragedy. His name was Narcissus. He was the son of the river god Cephissus, who had encircled the nymph Liriope with his winding streams. From the moment he took his first breath, Narcissus was unnaturally beautiful. His skin was like polished ivory, his eyes like the deep blue pools of his father's river. Liriope, concerned by the unearthly beauty of her son, sought out the blind prophet Tiresias, the most famous seer in all of Greece. She asked him a question that every mother asks, but with a fear only she understood. Will my son live a long and happy life? Tiresias, who saw the threads of fate that others could not, paused for a long time. Finally, he gave a cryptic answer that would echo through the ages. He will live to a ripe old age if he never knows himself. Liriope did not understand the warning. How could one not know oneself? She dismissed it as the riddles of an old man. Narcissus grew up, and with every year, his beauty intensified. By the time he was 16, he was a vision of perfection. He was a hunter, stalking the woods with his companions, but he was the one being hunted by the eyes of everyone who saw him. Men, women, and nymphs fell in love with him instantly. They offered him gifts, poems, and their hearts. But Narcissus was cursed with a heart of ice. He was proud, arrogant, and utterly incapable of loving anyone but himself. He scorned every suitor, mocking their tears and rejecting their love with cruel indifference, leaving a trail of broken spirits behind him as he walked through the forest, untouched and alone.
The cruel rejection. One hot summer day, fate brought the cursed nymph and the heartless boy together. Narcissus was hunting stags in the dense woods of Cithaeron. In the excitement of the chase, he became separated from his companions. He wandered into a lonely glade where Echo was hiding. From behind a screen of leaves, Echo saw him. The moment she laid eyes on the golden-haired youth, her heart, which she thought had died with her voice, flared into life. She fell deeply, painfully in love. She longed to call out to him, to warn him of the roots in his path, to tell him how beautiful he was. But her curse held her throat in an iron grip. She could not speak first. She could only wait. She followed him silently, stepping softly on the moss, praying he would say something. Narcissus, sensing a presence, stopped. The woods were too quiet. "Who is here?" he shouted into the trees. Echo, seizing the chance, replied with all the love she could muster, "Here!" Narcissus spun around, but saw no one. He was confused. "Come to me!" he called out, commanding. "Come to me!" Echo repeated, her voice trembling with joy. He looked around again, still nothing. "Why do you run from me?" he asked. "Run from me?" Echo asked back. "Let us meet here!" Narcissus shouted, frustrated. "Let us meet here!" Echo cried happily. This was it. He had invited her. Thinking he returned her affection, Echo rushed out from her hiding place. She threw her arms open and ran to embrace him, ready to pour out a lifetime of silenced love. But as she reached for him, Narcissus's face twisted in disgust. He recoiled as if she were a poisonous snake. He pushed her away violently, knocking her to the ground. "Hands off," he sneered, wiping his tunic where she had touched him. "I would die before I give you power over me. You are nothing but a mimic, a hollow voice." Echo, lying in the dirt, humiliated and heartbroken, whispered back to him her last words, "I give you power over me." Narcissus turned his back and walked away without a backward glance. Echo watched him go, her heart shattering into dust. She retreated into the darkest, loneliest caves of the mountains. She covered her face with leaves, ashamed of her rejection. Her grief was so intense that she stopped eating and sleeping. Her body wasted away, her skin withered, and her bones turned to stone. Finally, nothing was left of the nymph but her voice, a voice that still lives in canyons, empty halls, and mountain passes, forever repeating the calls of others, unable to start a story of her own.
But the gods do not leave cruelty unpunished. Narcissus continued his life of vanity, rejecting suitor after suitor. One day, a young man named Amenius, whom Narcissus had cruelly spurned and given a sword to kill himself with, cried out to the heavens before he died, "May he who loves not others love himself alone. May he suffer the pain of a love that can never be fulfilled." Nemesis, the goddess of revenge and divine retribution, heard this prayer. She decided it was time to teach the arrogant boy a lesson. One scorching afternoon, Narcissus was tired and thirsty from the hunt. He found a hidden spring in a glade that no shepherd or beast had ever touched. The grass was lush and green, and the water was a pool of silver, undisturbed and as smooth as a mirror. Narcissus knelt down on the grassy bank to drink. As he leaned over the water, he saw a face. It was the most beautiful face he had ever seen. Eyes like stars, hair like spun gold, cheeks flushed with the heat of the chase, and lips that looked like rose petals. He did not realize he was looking at his own reflection. He thought it was a water spirit, a naiad living in the spring. He smiled at the spirit, and the spirit smiled back with equal warmth. He waved, and the spirit waved back. Overcome with sudden, violent passion, Narcissus tried to kiss the beautiful stranger. He dipped his face into the water, but the moment his lips touched the surface, the image rippled and vanished. He pulled back in panic, waiting for the water to settle. When the face returned, he reached out his arms to embrace it, but his hands only grasped wet water, and the image fled again. "Why do you flee from me, beautiful one?" he cried, tears streaming down his face. "I am not ugly. The nymphs of the forest love me, yet you run away." But the silent face in the water only mimicked his tears. The flower of death. Narcissus was trapped. The curse of Nemesis had taken hold. He could not leave the pool. He forgot about food, about sleep, about his hunting companions. He lay on the damp grass day after night, staring obsessively at his own reflection, tormented by a lover he could see but never touch. He was burning with a fire that no water could quench. "Alas," he whispered to the trees, his voice weak with hunger and despair, "I am burning with love for myself. I am both the lover and the beloved. I light the fire and I suffer the flames. Now I know myself, and knowing myself is my death." The prophecy of Tiresias had come true. By knowing himself, by seeing his true reflection, he met his doom. Slowly his life force drained away. His golden beauty faded, his strength evaporated. As the shadow of death fell over his eyes, he summoned the last of his strength to say goodbye to the face in the water. "Farewell, my beloved." And from the nearby cave, the invisible watching echo whispered back the final goodbye. "Farewell, my beloved." Narcissus' head dropped onto the grass, and he died. His spirit descended to the underworld, where it is said he still stares at his reflection in the dark waters of the river Styx. When the dryads and nymphs came to collect his body for the funeral pyre, they found it gone. In its place, on the bank of the silver pool, grew a new flower. It had white petals surrounding a golden center, and its head was bent down towards the earth, as if eternally gazing at its own reflection. The Greeks named it the Narcissus. It remains to this day a symbol of vanity, a reminder of the deadly cost of self-obsession and the tragic boy who loved himself to death.